Hi everyone, I'm Hessie Jones. Welcome to Tech Uncensored. This is our final interview for the day, and it's a great closing because we get to speak to Paddy Cosgrave from the creator and the I guess the mastermind behind Collision. So welcome, Paddy.
Thank you very much. That's very kind of you. Collision is created ultimately by a team of over 300 people, but I'll take all the credit you're willing to give.
I'll give you all the credit for now.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want a little bit of history because Collision has been a phenomenal, I guess, statement here in Toronto for the last so many years. And I want you to talk about like where it started and what gave you the idea to create this phenomenal event.
Well, firstly, Collision is the little sister of WebSummit. So the first event we created was WebSummit over a decade ago now in Europe. It takes place every year in Lisbon. There are over 70,000 people that come from all over the world. Some years ago, we created an event called Collision in the United States, and in 2019, we moved it to Toronto, and it's grown up a little bit since then. And yeah, it's been amazing to have a packed house of 30,000 plus, maybe 36,000 attendees from 100 plus countries around the world.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the impact. So you had a couple of stats there. You said 36,000 attendees. What kind of attendance have we had from the countries, as well as the penetration of women startups?
Well, the women founded startups. About 30% of our 500 exhibiting startups across our different programs are founded by women, which is pretty unbelievable. The highest by far that we've ever had. Over 30% of our speakers are women, and over 40% of our attendees are women as well. So. Way back in the day, the figures were closer to 10%. They were kind of in single digits across a lot of those categories. We've worked hard. The team have worked hard, especially Carolyn on the community team, to try and change the level of participation. And she and her team have done incredibly well.
So one thing that I found really interesting was that some of the startups, like right now we're, I guess, living through some kind of startup winter where investment is down across the board. But you guys had an interesting stat about the number of startups that were at Collision and how much they're faring based compared to the average investment.
Yeah, I mean, it's true that startups that are at Collision, but it's a very self-selecting sample set in that tens of thousands of startups apply to be part of the different programs. We then choose what we consider the highest potential startups, and then it's already biased because the likelihood that those startups will succeed as compared to startups in general is much higher. I could argue that all of the startups outside, of which a fraction of them, small number of them will go on to quite likely be kind of decade-defining startups, even though they're very small today, we're going to succeed irrespective of whether they came to Collision or not. So I'd hate to suggest any causation. There's just some degree of correlation.
Yeah, no, I see that absolutely. Now, so tell us about this year's Collision, how it differs from the previous, from the perspective of demand for specific topics, people, events, etc.
Crypto bros are gone. They've been replaced by AI sisters in the space of a year. It's quite incredible. I've never seen a sector burn so brightly and fade so fast as crypto. It is what it is. And similarly, AI has sort of gone from something that was absolutely discussed and always kind of quite exciting, but it has ascended to the zenith, the peak of excitement within tech. Will it travel a similar course to crypto over the next year or two? I don't know. We've heard from so many different voices that I'm sure many people will go away with much more nuanced ideas of what AI is, what impact it may have, what dangers it may pose, and we've done our best to have a very broad and diverse set of voices on stage speaking on AI.
Yeah, no, I saw that, and I'm a big, I guess, skeptic of the existential threat that Jeffrey Hinton posed, which I thought was a bit ironic because we're talking about a disruption conference, and we're talking about people that are actually using generative AI to increase productivity, to increase efficiency, and then you have the Godfather saying, you're all going to die.
It's certainly dramatic what he has to say, and you can't just, I think you're right. It's hard to just rapidly discount it. I'd love to listen to what he had to say. I didn't get the opportunity to see him, listen to him on stage. I spoke with him in private beforehand. I'll watch back that talk. For sure, I'm not so worried personally about the existential threat of AI, but then I'm not an AI expert, so who am I to say?
Right. Okay, so a few more things. Tell us about some of the programs that you guys actually started in the last year. The Women in Tech, the Indigenous program, Amplify. Can you talk a little bit about those things?
Yeah, Amplify and the programs within it, like Women in Tech, we've been running for almost 8 years, I think, within our conferences. We've expanded the number of community partners we work with. There's a particular emphasis on Indigenous groups and other less represented groups or minorities, including black entrepreneurs, both from Canada and the United States and Africa as well. Today I spoke with a group of black entrepreneurs alongside some black Canadian leaders, including the first female black minister. And yeah, they're small programs. They're run by Carolyn Quinlan. She does an incredible job, but it's only scratching at the surface. In many cases, you're dealing with deep systemic and structural problems, and a tech conference isn't going to solve those, and we don't pretend that we will, but nevertheless I think there's a sort of minimal threshold of what any conference should be doing, and we try and play our part.
Okay, that's great, thanks. So one big announcement that you probably want to make about what's happening. Oh, are you surprised? What's happening next year?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of debate. I've seen tweets that we're moving to Montreal in the future, others that we're going to San Francisco, Chicago, and there's been mayors from cities across Canada here, from Calgary, from Vancouver, and then some more. But next year we're staying in Toronto. There are lots of great arguments for why we should consider, another Canadian city. Lots of great arguments by Canadians as to why we should never move south over the border, and yeah, I'd love to find a way to stay in Canada, and maybe Toronto is the right place. Maybe it's Calgary, maybe it should be Vancouver, maybe we should all be in Montreal. I don't really know, but we'll figure it out over the next 9 months.
Was there a specific catalyst that made that choice Toronto?
Oh, well, Toronto was down to two people. One was Sunil Sharma, who has spent years coming to our events and was constantly telling me that something was happening in Canada and we should really do something there. And the second was former mayor of Toronto, John Tory. He traveled to our event in Portugal, met with his peer equivalent, the mayor of Lisbon, and with the government of Portugal, and understood why they had attracted WebSummit and kept WebSummit in Portugal. And he was then instrumental in encouraging us to. We were pretty much set on San Francisco. It was a move that we decided. We got kind of blowback. It seemed counterintuitive. A lot of Silicon Valley types had never been to Toronto, nor saw any reason to ever be in Toronto or go to Toronto. So we faced quite a bit of pushback. But I think after the first year, people began to realize that Toronto's a great place to go, especially in June. There's a lot happening here. Canadian tech is going from strength to strength, and this is a country and a city where a lot of tech companies can easily relocate or open up offices. It's incredibly welcoming. Cities in Canada are run very well. I don't want to disparage the United States, but they've got significant problems that I don't think Canada has, although Canadians are quick to beat themselves up and be a bit negative on themselves. Anyway, it's been great here, and hopefully we'll stay here for the future.
So, as a fellow Canadian, I thank you. I thank you for coming here. I thank you for supporting Canadian startups and the Canadian ecosystem and the Canadian economy. So thank you very much, and congratulations on a successful Collision 2023.
Thank you so much. That's too kind, far too kind.
No problem. Thank you.